Everyone in Port Azure thought Scarlet Vance was the quiet type, until the day she accused a stranger of cheating, in the middle of a crowded cafe. The thing is, she was dead certain she'd caught her best friend's fiancé red-handed. Except the man in the red jacket wasn't who she thought. That single mistake put her face to face with the city's most untouchable heir, and it was the first step toward a marriage neither of them asked for. Scarlet Vance didn't raise her voice often, but when she did, the room listened. "Mark Rowan, step away from the blonde or I'll live stream your confession right now." Her voice cut through the clink of coffee cups at Azure Pert Cafe. Heads turned. Even the barista froze, pitcher of milk mid-pour. Scarlet stood by the counter, one hand gripping her phone, the other holding a receipt like it was Exhibit A in court. The man in the red jacket turned slowly. He wasn't Mark Rowan. Not even close. Grant Calloway's eyes were the kind that made people reconsider their life choices. Cool gray. Unreadable. The blonde across from him blinked, more amused than offended. "Excuse me." His voice was low, steady, like someone used to boardrooms, not street drama. Scarlett's pulse kicked, but she doubled down. "Don't play dumb. I saw you. Same build, same hair, same ridiculous jacket. You're supposed to be marrying Liana Torres in 2 weeks." A few people had their phones out now. Someone whispered, "That's Grant Calloway." The name rippled through the room like a dropped pebble in still water. She faltered. Calloway, as in Calloway Dynamics? She'd seen the name in headlines, billionaire heir, uptown, penthouse, and clearly not Mark. The blonde gave a polite, cat-like smile. "Grant, should I—" "Stay," he said, eyes still on Scarlet. "I'm curious how this ends." Her cheeks burned. I made a mistake." The words scraped on the way out. "You just looked like someone else from behind." Gasps, a few laughs. Someone in the back muttered, "Ouch." The humiliation pricked like needles under her skin. Grant leaned back in his seat, unbothered. "And what were you planning to do? Broadcast it to your followers?" Scarlet straightened. "If I had the right guy, absolutely. My friend's been lied to enough." A woman's voice called from the cafe entrance. "I like her." Every head turned. Vivian Calloway swept in like she owned the place, which, given her reputation, she might. Black silk coat, red lipstick, eyes that missed nothing. She looked from Scarlet to her son, then to the phone still recording. "Grant, marry her." Scarlet blinked. What?" Vivian's smile was pure theater. "She's bold, she's loyal, and judging by your face, she's the first person in years to catch you off guard. I approve." The cafe buzzed with disbelief. Grant's jaw tightened. "Mother!" Vivian ignored him, focusing on Scarlet. "Lunch, tomorrow. My driver will collect you. We'll discuss terms." She turned to leave, tossing a final line over her shoulder. "Where's something you can sign contracts in?" And just like that, she was gone. The room stayed quiet for a beat before conversation swelled again. Scarlet glanced at Grant, expecting him to laugh it off. He didn't. Instead, he reached into his wallet, dropped a bill on the table, and stood. "You have no idea what you've just stepped into, Miss Vance." She swallowed. "Story of my life." He walked past her, the scent of cedar and something sharper lingering. The blonde followed, giving Scarlet a look she couldn't read. Half pity, half intrigue. Scarlet stayed rooted to the spot, trying to make sense of what just happened. 5 minutes ago, she was a loyal friend calling out a cheater, and now she was apparently marriage material for one of the most powerful families in Port Azure. Her phone buzzed. "Lena, tell me you didn't just cause a scene downtown." Scarlet stared at the screen. Outside, she caught a glimpse of Vivian's sleek black car pulling away from the curb. Her gut told her she'd see that woman again. Soon. And when she did, it wouldn't be for coffee. Scarlet didn't expect Vivian Calloway's driver to show up the next morning. A sleek black sedan idled outside her apartment building, polished so clean it reflected the peeling paint of the old brick facade. The driver stepped out, tall, stone-faced, wearing gloves despite the warm air. "Miss Vance," his voice was crisp, no small talk. "Mrs. Calloway is expecting you." Scarlet hesitated, clutching her messenger bag like a shield. Every instinct said, "Don't get in the car." Every other instinct said, "Find out what she wants before she sends lawyers." The sedan purred through Port Azure's financial district, past glass towers and waterfront marinas. They pulled into the private deck of the Azure Marina Club, a place she'd only seen in lifestyle magazines, the kind with dress codes, security gates, and wine lists longer than her lease. Inside, Vivian sat at a table overlooking the harbor, espresso cup in one hand, tablet in the other. She didn't stand when Scarlet approached. "You're late," said Vivian, without looking up. Scarlet checked her watch. "It's 9:58. "I said 9:30. Vivian set down the cup and gestured to the empty chair. "Sit." Scarlet sat, chin up, reminding herself she hadn't actually done anything wrong, unless public embarrassment counted as a felony in this city. Vivian slid a thick envelope across the table. Inside, a glossy prenup packet, embossed with the Calloway crest. Scarlet's laugh was short and sharp. "You're joking." "I don't joke about business or family," Vivian said. "You embarrassed my son in front of half the café and several million online viewers. Public humiliation is a liability. A scandal, if not managed, weakens position. Solution: remove the scandal." "By marrying me?" Scarlet's voice cracked on the last word. Vivian leaned forward. "Temporary arrangement. 1 year. I control the narrative. In return, you avoid illegal complications." "Illegal complications?" Scarlet's stomach tightened. Vivian tapped her tablet, spinning it towards Scarlet. Headlines blinked across the screen. "Heir to be defamed by stranger. Viral video backlash. Cafe confrontation sparks lawsuit rumors." "Grant could sue for defamation and damages," Vivian said. "The number in my head has 7 digits." Scarlet's pulse pounded. "You wouldn't?" Vivian smiled faintly. "I would, but I'd rather have you as an asset than an adversary. You have fire, Miss Vance. People like you don't fold easily. That's rare." Scarlet's mind raced. She had rent due, her parents' antique shop barely staying afloat, and Lena, if this blew up, Lena would think Scarlet had ruined her life to chase clout. She straightened. 1 year, no NDA on abuse or criminal activity, I keep my job at the Azure Crown, and I have veto power over public events. Vivian's brows arched. "You negotiate." "I survive." Vivian extended a manicured hand. "We have a deal." Scarlet hesitated before shaking it. Vivian's grip was firm, cold, and final. "Good," Vivian said, pulling back. "I'll arrange the city clerk appointment for Friday. Grant will be informed." "Informed?" Scarlet echoed. "I never ask permission." Vivian's gaze shifted to the marina, already dismissing her. "Driver will take you home." Scarlet had never seen so many cameras in one place without a red carpet. Port Azure City Hall steps were a wall of lenses, microphones, and shouted questions. Reporters leaned over barricades, paparazzi balanced on curbs. Tourists pointed their phones. For this. She gripped the small clutch Vivian had pressed into her hands that morning. Inside was the marriage license application, her ID, and a pen that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Grant Calloway was already halfway up the steps. immaculate in a navy suit. Not the red jacket from the café, thank God, but still the kind of tailored fit that said, "Old money doesn't check price tags." He turned back just enough to speak over the din. "Smile. Pretend you like me." Scarlett's jaw tightened. "I don't have to pretend." His brow arched. "That's the spirit." The first reporter managed to get close enough to shout, "Grant! Scarlett! Is this for real or damage control?" Scarlett felt every microphone in the vicinity tilt toward her. She could practically hear Vivian's warning in her head. Control the narrative. She stopped 2 steps from the top, turning to face the crowd. "I didn't know him a week ago, but I do know this. When you make a mistake, you own it. And sometimes you end up signing paperwork because someone's mother is, persuasive." A ripple of laughter moved through the press. Even some of the paparazzi lowered their cameras for a beat. Grant paused beside her, watching. "You're enjoying this?" "Not even a little," she muttered. Inside, the clerk barely blinked when Vivian swept in behind them to observe. Grant and Scarlett signed their names in silence, pens scratching over government forms. A plain gold band, Vivian's choice, slid onto Scarlett's finger. "There," Grant said quietly. "It's official." Scarlett stared at the ink on the page. Scarlet Vance Calloway. It didn't look real. When they stepped back outside, the questions came harder. Will you live together? Is there a prenup? Are you in love? Scarlett glanced at Grant, who gave a faint shake of his head. Don't answer. But the journalist nearest them looked young, nervous, maybe new. Something about her reminded Scarlett of herself 2 years ago. She leaned toward the mic. "We agreed on honesty in private and teamwork in public. That's all you need to know right now." It wasn't a declaration of love, but it wasn't a denial either. As they moved toward the waiting car, Grant opened the door for her. It was probably for the cameras, but still, it startled her. Once the door shut and the sedan pulled away, the noise outside muted. "You didn't have to speak," Grant said finally. "I didn't like the way they looked at you," she replied, surprising herself. Grant studied her for a long moment before looking away. This might work after all. Scarlett looked out the window at the receding crowd. If work meant surviving the next 12 months without imploding, maybe. But deep down, she knew this wasn't just paperwork anymore. The moment she had faced those cameras and spoken like they were already a team, something had shifted. And she wasn't sure if that made things better or much, much worse. The elevator to the executive floor of the Azure Crown Hotel opened with a chime, revealing Camille Duval leaning against the reception desk like she owned the place. "You're late," Camille said, her voice sugar over steel. "But I suppose the vice president of public relations can arrive whenever she likes. Oh, wait, that's not you." Scarlett stepped out, resisting the urge to roll her eyes. "Morning to you too, Camille." Camille's smile didn't reach her eyes. "HR's looking for you. Something about irregularities in last night's banquet invoices." Scarlett's stomach tightened. The gala had been flawless. She had personally checked the vendor sheets before going home. What irregularities? "Guess you'll find out." Camille's tone was light, but there was something smug in the tilt of her chin. Before Scarlett could press, Mark Rowan strolled out of a side office carrying a folder. "Scarlett," he said, voice dripping with faux concern, "I'm so sorry about this mess. I told Camille we shouldn't file the report until you had a chance to explain." Scarlett froze. "Report?" Camille's smirk whitened. "Missing payments, overcharged bar orders, vendors saying their checks bounced. It all points back to you." Her pulse hammered in her ears. That's impossible. I signed off on clean numbers. Mark shrugged. Maybe someone else used your login, or maybe you were distracted given your sudden marital upgrade. Scarlet caught the unspoken accusation. Gold digger, opportunist. The same whispers she had heard from guests all week. She didn't bother arguing with them. Instead, she headed straight to the banquet office. 2 hours later, she had the vendor ledgers spread across the conference table. The invoices looked legitimate, except the account numbers had been altered by 1 digit, just enough to reroute payments. Whoever did it knew the system well. Camille appeared in the doorway, holding her phone like a trophy. HR meeting. Now. In the glass-walled boardroom, the head of HR flipped open a file. Scarlet, can you explain why 5 vendors' payments were sent to incorrect accounts? Yes, she said, sliding a printed sheet across the table. Because someone altered them after my approval. Here's the system log. Changes were made at 11:42 p.m. last night from an IP address registered to the lobby office, Camille's office. Camille's face went rigid. You can't prove I was the one. No, she said, but IT can. She turned to HR. I've already asked them to pull the security footage from the lobby after hours. If I'm wrong, I'll resign today. The HR manager nodded slowly. We'll investigate. Camille shot her a glare sharp enough to cut glass and swept out of the room. Outside the boardroom, Mark lingered by the elevators. Not bad, he said quietly, but watch yourself. People in this place don't like being made to look stupid. Scarlet stepped into the elevator and hit the button for her floor. As the doors closed, she felt the rush of a small win, but she knew it wouldn't last. Camille and Mark wouldn't stop here, and next time, they'd be smarter. Scarlet had been to plenty of banquets at the Azure Crown Hotel, but never as the center of an execution. The ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and polished silver, but all she saw was the narrow path between the linen-draped tables and the stage where the general manager stood with a microphone. Scarlet Vance, he said into the mic, voice carrying over the hum of conversation. Would you join me up here, please? Every fork in the room paused mid-air. Scarlet walked forward, pulse thrumming. She'd been told this was a vendor appreciation dinner. No mention of her being on the program. The GM's smile was polite but thin. We've had concerns raised about financial irregularities under your coordination. As of tonight, a murmur ran through the crowd. Scarlet felt the eyes, some pitying, some gleeful. Camille Duval, 3 tables away, was sipping champagne with the ease of someone watching a fire she started. As of tonight, we will be suspending your duties pending investigation. Scarlet's spine locked. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but the mic wasn't hers. And then, like a queen entering court, Grant Calloway appeared in the back of the room. Black gown, emerald earrings, and a look that made the GM step back without realizing he had. Vivian didn't wait for permission. She took the mic from his hand with the kind of grace that still left him blinking. Good evening, she began, her voice cutting clean through the chatter. I'm Grant Calloway, majority stakeholder of the Azure Crown Hotel. And I believe I just heard one of my best assets being dismissed without due process. Camille shifted in her seat. Mark Rowan's smirk faltered. Vivian turned to Scarlet. Is it true you saved the Thompson wedding banquet last month after a vendor truck broke down? Scarlet nodded cautiously. Yes, ma'am. Is it true you negotiated the rooftop renovation under budget? Yes. And is it true, Vivian said, eyes sweeping the room, that our vendor satisfaction scores are the highest they've been in 5 years? Under your watch? Scarlet swallowed. That's also true. Vivian faced the crowd. Then, effective immediately, Scarlet Vance will serve as Vice President of Guest Experience. Her authority is to be respected without question. As for Mr. Rowan, Mark straightened in his seat, you're fired. Security will escort you out. Gasps burst around the room. Mark's face flushed as two security staff approached. Vivian handed the mic back to the GM, who looked like he'd just been told to eat glass. Scarlett's voice was low when Vivian joined her off stage. "You didn't have to." "I did," Vivian said. "If you're going to carry my family name, you will not be humiliated in public. That privilege belongs to me alone." Scarlett wasn't sure whether to thank her or run. From across the room, Camille's expression was unreadable, but Scarlett caught the glint in her eyes. It wasn't over. Scarlett didn't stop moving until she was out of the ballroom and halfway down the hotel service corridor. The applause, the gasps, Vivian's voice still echoing in her ears, it all felt like it had happened to someone else. She leaned against the wall, clutching the little black clutch Vivian had pressed into her hand after the announcement. Inside was a new keycard. "Penthouse. You'll move in tonight." Scarlett had laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. By the time she reached the top floor of the Azure Crown, it was close to midnight. The penthouse door swung open to reveal Grant Calloway leaning against the kitchen island. No tie, sleeves rolled up. "I hear congratulations are in order," he said, voice even, but eyes assessing. Scarlett dropped her clutch on the counter. "And I hear I don't have a choice about living here." "You could say no, but you'd be insulting my mother, which, for the record, I don't recommend." Scarlett glanced around. The place was all glass and clean lines, steel and stone, warmed by the amber glow of recessed lighting. It felt like the kind of space where nothing personal was ever left out in the open. "Don't worry," she said. "I'm not here to redecorate." Grant poured 2 glasses of water, slid one toward her. "We should set ground rules." She took a sip, nodding. "Separate bedrooms, respect each other's schedules, honesty in private, teamwork in public." "Fine," he said. "And one more thing. No personal questions." She raised her brow. "Afraid I might find out you actually have feelings?" A corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Afraid you might assume I do." Before she could reply, the lights flickered, then cut out completely. The hum of the penthouse fell into silence. "Generator will kick in soon," Grant said, moving toward a drawer. He pulled out 2 flashlights and handed one to her. In the dim beam, Scarlett saw a different side of him. Less polished, more human. They ended up in the kitchen, rummaging for something they could cook without power. 20 minutes later, they were eating pasta straight from the pot at the counter, the flashlights propped between wine bottles. Scarlett twirled noodles on her fork. "This is strangely normal." "Don't get used to it," he said, but there was no edge in his voice. For a moment, it was easy to forget the contract, the cameras, the fact that her life had been turned upside down in under a week. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. A news alert. Sources claim Calloway marriage a sham, couple sleeping in separate rooms. Her stomach dropped. She turned the screen toward Grant. "They're already spinning it." He read the headline, jaw tightening. "I'll call the PR team." "No," Scarlett said, surprising herself. "Let me." She tapped out a short statement for the press. "We respect privacy in our home, and that's all the public needs to know. Teamwork, not performance." Grant read it over and nodded. Concise, controlled. You might survive this after all. She met his eyes in the dim light. We both might. The statement Scarlett issued the night before had bought her a few hours of peace. By the next morning, peace was gone. She stepped out of the penthouse elevator into the Azure Crown staff hall and was met by a wall of tense faces. Housekeeping supervisors, concierge staff, catering leads, all gathered like they were bracing for bad news. Camille Duval stood at the front, arms crossed, her smile sharp as cut glass. "Your first day as vice president of guest experience, and half our vendor partners are threatening to walk." Scarlett blinked. "Walk? Why?" "They want back payments cleared by noon, or they're pulling their teams from tonight's conference event, the Port Azure Maritime Summit, in case you have forgotten." Scarlett didn't flinch. No one's culling out. Where's the vendor rep? Her smirk deepened. Gone. He said call him when the check clears. Scarlett's mind spun. The summit meant 300 high-profile guests, including the city mayor and a dozen foreign investors. If the vendors walked, the Calloway name and hers would take the hit. She dropped her bag on the nearest counter. Get the finance office on the line now. Camille raised a brow, but pulled out her phone. Minutes later, Scarlett was on speaker with finance. We can't cut new checks until the quarterly meeting next week, the manager said flatly. Scarlett took a breath. Fine, then we'll restructure the deal. There was a beat of silence. What kind of restructure? She glanced at the anxious faces around her. We'll pay 70% now, 30% within 10 days, and throw in prime advertising space in the lobby during the summit, free of charge. That's not policy, finance protested. It is now. And she ended the call before they could argue. She turned to Camille. Tell the vendors they'll get the revised contracts in the next 20 minutes, and I want them signed before noon. Camille hesitated, clearly deciding whether to defy her in front of the staff. Finally, she nodded and left. Scarlett looked back at the team. I know it's been a mess, but I'm not here to make enemies. I'm here to make this place work. That starts with treating our partners like partners. The tension in the room eased, replaced by a ripple of cautious respect. Someone at the back murmured, about time. By 11:45, every vendor had signed. The summit went ahead that night without a hitch. Later, as Scarlett reviewed the event floor from the balcony, she felt a presence at her side. Grant, in a charcoal suit, hands in his pockets. Camille isn't smiling, he observed. Scarlett allowed herself a small grin. She'll get used to it. Grant studied her profile for a moment. You're not what I expected. She turned. What did you expect? He said, someone who'd just survived this, not someone who'd win. The Port Azure Maritime Summit had barely wrapped when Scarlett finally slipped out of the azure crown, heels clicking on the marble foyer. She was ready for nothing more than a hot shower and quiet. Instead, she spotted two familiar figures leaning against the sleek black sedan parked outside the penthouse building. Her parents. Her mother clutched a battered canvas bag, her father holding the corner of a sheet-draped object, something bulky and rectangular. Scarlett froze mid-step. What are you doing here? Her mother gave a tired smile. We took the evening ferry. We needed to see you. The driver popped the trunk without being asked. Her father eased the object inside, the fabric slipping just enough for Scarlett to see the carved wood of an antique display cabinet. Her stomach sank. It's the shop, isn't it? Her father's sigh confirmed it. Rent's gone up again. Foot traffic's down. We're 3 months from closing unless something changes. Scarlett felt the weight of it all over again. The antique shop had been in her family for 30 years. It was where she'd done homework behind the counter, where she'd learned how to haggle with stubborn customers. I can't just... She began, then stopped. She could write a check, but they'd refuse it. And besides, Camille and Mark were already painting her as someone using the Calloway name for personal gain. The elevator doors slid open behind her. Grant stepped out, phone in hand, scanning the street. When he saw her parents, he tucked the phone away. You're Scarlett's family, he said, offering his hand like this was a business introduction. Grant Calloway. Her father shook it hesitantly. We didn't mean to intrude. Grant's eyes shifted to Scarlett. Problem? She hesitated. The shop's not doing well. He nodded once, like a deal forming in his head. What do you sell? Antiques, mostly furniture, some jewelry. Then here's what we do. The Azure Crown lobby gets hundreds of visitors daily. We'll set up a rotating pop-up for local businesses. Your shop will be the first. Scarlett blinked. You can't just... I can, he said simply. Hotel gets a unique attraction. Your family gets foot traffic and sales. Revenue split. Win-win. Her father frowned. We Can't take charity. It's not charity, Grant replied. It's partnership, and I expect partners to pull their weight. Scarlett's parents exchanged a look. Her mother finally nodded. We'll try it. By the time Scarlett followed them inside, she realized what Grant had just done. Solved a problem without making her feel indebted, while strengthening the hotel's image. In the penthouse elevator, she said quietly, "Thank you." Grant glanced at her, the faintest curve at the corner of his mouth. Just teamwork, right? The pop-up was a hit from the moment it opened. For a full week, the Azure Crown's marble lobby smelled faintly of cedar and lemon polish, and every guest seemed to leave with a small tissue-wrapped treasure from the Vance antique collection. The seventh night, Scarlett found herself on the hotel's rooftop terrace, double-checking the final setup for the Harbor Lights Charity Gala. Glass lanterns lined the railings, strings of gold lights crisscrossed overhead, and the city's marina glittered in the distance. It was perfect, until the first fat drop of rain hit her cheek. She looked up. A bank of dark clouds was rolling in fast over Port Azure Bay. Within minutes, wind whipped across the rooftop, sending napkins skittering. "Of course," she muttered, grabbing a centerpiece before it toppled. "Need a hand?" She turned to see Grant stepping out from the service stairwell, jacket already off, sleeves rolled high. "Did Vivian send you to supervise?" she asked, wrestling with the tablecloth. He took the edge from her hands. "No, I saw the forecast." Lightning flashed over the water, followed by a deep rumble. They worked side by side, moving glassware and folding chairs under the awning. The storm closed in, rain drumming against the terrace. When everything was safe, they ducked under the narrow shelter of the awning themselves. It was barely wide enough for two. Scarlett leaned against the support post, catching her breath. I thought marrying you was going to be the weirdest part of my year. Turns out dodging a thunderstorms on a rooftop might be it." Grant glanced at her, rainwater glinting in his hair. "You're getting good at handling disasters." She smiled faintly. "Practice." For a moment, the noise of the storm faded. He was looking at her the way people did in old movies. Direct, unhurried, like he had all the time in the world to see her. She felt the pull before she realized she'd stepped half a pace closer. His gaze dropped to her mouth, just briefly, before he looked away. Scarlett blinked, heat rushing to her cheeks. "We should, check the catering team." "Probably," he said quietly. Before either of them could move, a flash from the corner of the terrace caught her eye. A drone hovering just beyond the railing, its tiny camera pointed straight at them. Her stomach dropped. "Tell me that's hotel security." "It's not," Grant said. The drone zipped away into rain. Scarlett already knew what tomorrow's tabloids would say. Grainy, romanticized images of the two of them under the awning. Perfect clickbait for the sham marriage narrative. "PR team?" Grant asked. Scarlett shook her head. "No spin. We ignore it. Let them guess." His lips curved, just slightly. "Dangerous move." "Maybe," she said, stepping into the stairwell. "But sometimes mystery sells better than truth." The drone photos hit the gossip feeds by morning. "Stormy rooftop rendezvous. Calloway's finally show sparks," blared across every entertainment site in Port Azure. Scarlett scrolled through the headlines over her coffee at the Azure Crown's executive lounge. Most of the shots made the moment under the awning look cinematic, rain glistening, city lights blurred behind them. She'd ignored requests for comment, just as she had promised Grant. She was halfway through deleting another reporter's email when her phone buzzed with a text from him. "Need you in the Marina Club boardroom. Urgent." The Marina Club's private boardroom smelled faintly of sea salt and leather. Grant was already there, standing at the head of the long table. Across from him sat Serena Hart. Sleek black dress, flawless makeup, and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Scarlet recognized her instantly. Serena Hart wasn't just Port Azure's most aggressive investor. She was also the face of the Hart Group, a luxury hospitality empire, and a woman rumored to have dated Grant years ago. "Scarlet," Grant said, his tone clipped, "this is Serena. She has a proposal." Serena's gaze swept Scarlet head to toe. "The merger is simple. Hart Group and Calloway Dynamics combine resources. You get access to our global distribution channels. We gain your tech infrastructure. Everyone wins." Scarlet slid into the chair beside Grant. "And the part you're not saying?" Serena's smile sharpened. "I prefer to discuss certain synergies in private." She reached into her clutch and pulled out a keycard. Hart Group's penthouse suite. She set it on the table just close enough to Grant's hand. Scarlet's fingers curled around the edge of her chair. Grant didn't flinch. "No, Serena." Her brow arched. "No to which part?" "All of it," he said flatly. "We're not for sale, and I don't mix business with personal." Serena's gaze flicked between them. "Then you'd better hope the Hart Group doesn't start courting your competitors. I'd hate to see Calloway Dynamics isolated." With that, she stood, smoothed her dress, and left. Scarlet exhaled slowly. "That was subtle." Grant turned to her. "I'm telling you because you're going to hear about it. Serena doesn't lose quietly." "What's her angle?" Scarlet asked. "Control," Grant said. "Over the company, over me. She sees the marriage as leverage." Scarlet tilted her head. "Then it's a good thing we're a team in public." A faint smile touched his lips. "You still good with that?" She thought of the drone, the headlines, the constant speculation. And then she thought of her parents' shop thriving in the lobby downstairs, the vendors who'd trusted her word, the rooftop reign. "Yeah, still good." The next morning, Scarlet was leading a group of investors through the Azure Crown's renovated conference wing. "And this space now features built-in projection, acoustic panels, and flexible seating for up to 300, she explained, gesturing toward the polished hardwood floors. Her voice was steady, but inside she still felt the residual tension from Serena Hart's little performance in the boardroom. She'd barely slept, running through possible retaliations from Hart Group. As the investors moved on toward the ballroom, Scarlet ducked into the staff restroom to take a breath. She locked the door, set her tablet on the counter, and froze when she noticed the small pharmacy bag peeking out of her clutch. She'd bought the test 2 days ago and kept putting it off. This morning's lingering nausea had made her grab it on instinct before leaving the penthouse. Her fingers shook as she unwrapped it. 2 minutes later, she stared at the small plastic window. 2 lines. Clear. Unmistakable. The noise of the hotel faded to a dull hum. She gripped the edge of the counter, trying to slow her breathing. She wasn't ready for this, or maybe she was. She didn't know which thought scared her more. A soft knock on the door jolted her. "Scarlet?" It was Grant's voice. She opened the door, he took one look at her face and stepped inside, closing it behind him. "What happened?" She held up the test. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I think we're having a baby." For a heartbeat, his expression didn't change. Then the tension in his jaw eased, and something softer broke through, something she hadn't seen in him before. "You're sure?" he asked. She nodded. Grant took the test from her, set it gently on the counter, and rested his hands on her shoulders. "Then we deal with it. Together." The word together caught her off guard. "You're not angry?" "No," he said simply. "We've handled worse in the last month. This is not worse." Scarlet laughed once, a shaky sound that turned into something steadier. "You realize this changes everything, right?" He met her eyes. "Yeah, it means protecting you both comes first, no matter what Serena Hart, Camille, or anyone else throws at us." Her throat tightened. Vivian will adapt. She's built for survival. So are we." When they stepped back into the hallway, the investors were already returning from the ballroom. Scarlet smoothed her blazer, slipping the test back into her clutch. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. The Black Tie Harbor Lights fundraiser was the kind of event where Port Azure's power players smiled with champagne flutes in hand while quietly trading favors worth millions. Scarlet had learned to spot the real conversations, the ones in low voices near the silent auction tables, where eyes didn't quite match the smiles. Tonight, she kept her own smile steady, one hand resting over the slight curve of her stomach. Vivian had insisted on a deep emerald gown that shimmered under the chandeliers. "Make them look," she said, fastening the clasp on Scarlet's necklace herself. "Then make them listen." Grant stayed close as they worked the room, introducing her to shipping magnates, city council members, and tech investors. Everything was smooth until the orchestra fell silent and Adrian Calloway, Grant's father, took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," Adrian began, voice rich with authority, "Calloway Dynamics has always believed in evolution, in strategic alliances that keep us ahead." Scarlet's gut tightened. "That is why tonight," Adrian continued, "I'm proud to announce preliminary talks for a merger with the Hart Group." A ripple ran through the crowd. Scarlet's pulse spiked. The Hart Group? Serena! Adrian's gaze swept the room, then landed squarely on her. "And let us be honest. Temporary arrangements, however charming, cannot guide a company into the future. Calloway Dynamics requires permanence, vision, leadership, not distractions." The words hung in the air like smoke. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Others didn't bother hiding their curiosity. Scarlet's fingers curled into her clutch. She wanted to disappear, or throw her champagne in his face. Before she could do either, Vivian's voice rang out from the back of the room. "Adrian," she said, moving forward with unhurried steps, "you're absolutely right." For a beat, relief flared, until Vivian stopped halfway to the stage, removed the diamond ring from her finger, and placed it neatly on a passing waiter's tray. "Which is why I'm divorcing you." The ballroom gasped. Adrian froze. Vivian reached into her evening bag, withdrew a sleek folder, and set it on the podium beside him. "My controlling shares in Calloway Dynamics, every last one, are hereby transferred to Scarlet Vance Calloway." The room erupted in whispers. Scarlet's mouth went dry. "Vivian?" Vivian didn't glance back. "She's the only one in this family who's proven she can lead without selling her soul." Adrian's jaw clenched. "This is madness." "No," Vivian said, her voice silk over steel. "This is strategy." She handed the microphone to Scarlet. Her hands felt strangely steady as she took it. "Thank you for your confidence," Scarlet said, scanning the crowd. "Calloway Dynamics will continue to lead, not by sacrificing integrity, but by strengthening it. That is the future we believe in." A smattering of applause broke out, tentative, but real. When she stepped off the stage, Grant was there, pride in his eyes. "You just made a lot of enemies," he murmured. Scarlet exhaled. "Then I guess I'd better start acting like a CEO." By morning, the Calloway Dynamics boardroom felt less like a meeting space and more like a battlefield. Cameras crowded the street below, reporters yelling questions up at the glass facade. Inside, executives whispered in tight clusters, pausing when Scarlet entered. She set her bag on the table, straightened the papers Vivian had given her, and spoke before anyone could challenge her. "We're implementing a 90-day stabilization plan, effective today." A low murmur rippled through the room. "Vendor contracts will be reviewed for ethical compliance. Department leads will submit transparency reports. And we're launching an internal audit to make sure this company doesn't end up in bed with anyone like the Hart Group without full board approval." Camille Duval shifted in her seat. "That sounds, aggressive." Scarlet met her gaze. "It's called accountability." She slid a folder across the table. "Camille, your name came up in the Meridian Hotel investigation. You're terminated, effective immediately." Gasps. Camille's cheeks flushed, but before she could stand, Scarlet added, "If you want to return in 6 months under the compliance division, there'll be a place for you. If not, security will see you out." Camille hesitated, then left without a word. Scarlet closed her notes. That's all. Meeting adjourned. By the time she stepped out into the lobby, she could feel the change in the air. Not victory exactly, but the start of something she might be able to win. That evening, she slipped into the Azure Crown's lobby to check on her parents' boutique. The antique display cases glowed warmly under spotlights, customers lingering over silver bracelets and carved boxes. Scarlet? She turned and froze. Grant stood in the middle of the shop. No suit jacket, no crowd. Just him holding a small black box. "I was going to wait," he said, "but after this week, no point pretending anymore." He opened the box to reveal a ring, antique setting, rose-cut diamond. She recognized it instantly. It had been in her parents' collection for years. "You bought this?" she whispered. "I didn't buy it. I traded for it. Helped your dad secure a shipment from an estate sale in Marseille. He said it should stay in the family." Her throat tightened. "Grant!" He went down on one knee, right there between the glass cases. Shoppers turned, some smiling, some already lifting phones. "I don't want this to be a contract anymore," he said. "I want it to be a choice. You, me. Equal partners, no secrets." Her heart was pounding so hard she could barely hear over it. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." She didn't hesitate. "Yes!" The small crowd in the lobby broke into applause. Her parents emerged from behind the counter, her mother wiping her eyes. Grant slipped the ring onto her finger and rose, his hand lingering in hers. "I think this qualifies as good PR," she murmured. He smiled, this time no trace of his usual reserve. "For once, I don't care about the press." They stood there for a moment, the noise of the lobby fading into something softer. For the first time since the café confrontation, it felt like they were exactly where they were supposed to be. The wedding was nothing like the one Vivienne had originally envisioned months ago. No guest list curated for business leverage, no press barricades outside the venue, no three-tiered seating chart designed to keep rivals from accidentally sharing champagne. Instead, Scarlet walked alone through the courtyard of the Azure Crown, sunlight spilling over white stone archways and rows of guests drawn from friends, family, and the few Calloway Dynamics staff she trusted. The air smelled faintly of orange blossoms drifting in from the hotel garden. Halfway down the aisle, she stopped. Her parents rose from the front row, meeting her in the middle. Her father's arm slipped through hers, her mother's hand warm against her back. Together, they walked her the rest of the way toward Grant. He was waiting under a simple arch draped in greenery, wearing a charcoal suit that somehow felt more honest than any tuxedo. When she reached him, he smiled in a way she hadn't seen before. Open, unguarded. The officiant began, but Scarlet barely heard. All she saw was Grant's hand brushing hers, his thumb tracing the edge of her engagement ring. When it was time for vows, she went first. "I thought this would be a year I'd survive," she said, voice steady but soft. "That I'd keep my head down until the contract ended. Instead, you made me want more, not just for myself, but for us. You stood beside me in storms even when you didn't have to, and I promised to stand with you no matter what's coming." Grant's turn. "When we met, you called me a liar in front of half the city. You didn't back down then, and you haven't backed down since. I thought I needed control. Turns out I needed someone who'd make me let go of it." He paused, eyes locked on hers. "I choose you. Not for the optics, not for the company, just for you." There wasn't a dry eye in the front row, including Vivian, who dabbed at hers with a handkerchief and pretended she was fixing her makeup. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife. They kissed, not for the cameras, not because it was expected, but because it was impossible not to. Applause filled the courtyard. In the middle of it, Vivian stepped forward and pressed something small into Scarlett's hand, a gold lapel pin in the shape of the Calloway crest. "For when you're ready to run the empire," Vivian murmured. Scarlett smiled. "I already am." The reception was simple. String lights, live music, and a dance floor under the stars. Scarlett danced with her parents, then with Grant, then with a few laughing hotel staff who had been part of every crisis she'd survived this year. Later, as the guests thinned and the music softened, Scarlett and Grant stood at the edge of the courtyard, looking out toward the bay. "Remember the rooftop?" he asked. "The storm?" she said. "Hard to forget. That was the first time I thought, maybe this wasn't going to be a disaster." She leaned against him. "It's still early. We've got plenty of time to make disasters together." He laughed, holding her close. "As long as we make them ours." Across the courtyard, her parents' boutique display twinkled in the corner of the lobby, already drawing curious guests. Calloway Dynamics was stable again, if only for now. And the city was still talking about the woman who went from a cafe confrontation to the head of an empire. Scarlett looked up at the man she had married twice, once by force, once by choice, and felt the weight of the last year settle into something lighter. They had built this, together. And for the first time, she believed they could keep it. In the end, Scarlett's story wasn't just about a marriage or even about taking control of an empire. It was about the quiet courage to stand her ground when the world tried to push her out, the grace to lead without losing herself, and the patience to let love grow where it wasn't meant to. From a single, messy confrontation in a cafe to a life built on trust and choice, she proved that dignity isn't handed down, it's carved out, moment by moment in the face of doubt. And sometimes, the greatest victories are the ones that change who we believe ourselves to be. If you had the chance to turn a mistake into the greatest risk of your life, knowing it could cost your heart, your pride, and your peace, would you take it? Or would you walk away to keep yourself safe? If Scarlett and Grant's journey stayed with you, even for a heartbeat, tap that like so I'll know it found its mark. And if you're drawn to underdog triumphs, slow burn romances, and stories where love grows out of resilience, subscribe and come back for the next one. I'll save you a seat.